Terry, and good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see you all. If you are like me, I'm getting pretty used to these video conference type meetings, and so we had our first virtual board meeting last night, which was lots of fun. I think we learn every time we do this. But first thing I'd like to do is just say thank you. I don't even know where to start. I just it's so hard for me to even get my head around what our teachers and our educators have accomplished over these past few weeks. I'll be forever grateful on the work that you're doing. The balance between empathy and accountability that we're all trying to create as we both push our kids, but also understand that some of them are in pretty tough situations right about now. So just wanted to say thank you. And when folks have asked me how things are going, my response is we have a pretty good plan and really great people. And the great people, the great teachers of this district have made home learning work. It's not perfect, certainly, still a work in progress, but I just want to start by thanking all of you and all of the teachers in our schools for everything that I think that this is an incredible accomplishment that we've been able to see here over the past few weeks. So I know that we're gonna give people an opportunity to ask questions, which is great, but I'm gonna try to preempt that by answering 3 questions that I've received from teachers pretty regularly over the past couple of weeks. First question is, Rob, do you really think we're gonna go back to school? And why haven't you called it yet? I know that there was a bunch of districts a couple of weeks ago who decided to just go ahead and close in-person learning. We decided to hold out, and I think that our hopes were over the past few weeks and even into next week that we might be able to see an opportunity to bring some students back in maybe a limited basis, kids that needed intermediation, kids that we were behind, or potentially bring back our class of 2020 or other kids to celebrate. I think about this, kids went home on a Thursday, and they just left, right? And we didn't give them any closure, not a time to say goodbye. And so I think we were holding out hope. As we look at where we're at today, you can expect us to make a call next week. Governor has stated he'll make a call next week, week of the 20th, and we'll follow suit. And if he doesn't make it quick enough, then we'll just go ahead and make that decision. Just holding out hope that we could do something, I think, was the reason we didn't call it prior to then. So you can expect that next week. If you've got teachers, feel free to share that with them that you can expect a call next week. I don't want anybody to have angst over this or get nervous. We're holding out on hope, and as it turns out, it doesn't look like that we're going to be able to come back in any capacity. So that's where we are with that. Last night, you may have read about this in the Daily Camera. We gave a preliminary budget outlook. I'm giving 3 scenarios. First scenario would be flat funding. Second scenario, a 2.5% cut. Third scenario, a 5% cut. We feel pretty good about being flat, and even a 2.5% cut. We would have some work to do if we'd have to cut our budget by 5%. Depending upon who you would listen to, there's rumors anywhere from $1 to $3 billion in a state budget cut because of COVID-19. And so, we can't predict the future. We're just really trying to be prepared on whatever happens. And so if you haven't had a chance to see the budget presentation, you can certainly watch that. It should be up either today or tomorrow. But know that we're going to prepare for whatever that scenario may be. It's looking less and less likely that it'll be flat, even that there will be some types of cuts. The other question that I've got from probably about 5 or 10 teachers is, why can't we use Zoom? Here we are using Zoom today. I think the short answer is for applications like Zoom, we typically, based on our board policy, would have a data privacy agreement. We do not have a data privacy agreement with Zoom. I know that there have been some concerns a few weeks ago, and that folks are, and Zoom is trying to mitigate those concerns. The longer this goes on, if we feel like, and if teachers genuinely feel like Zoom is a much better tool than Google Meets, I think that's something that we can revisit. Our answer at this point is that's really the tool we're using is Google Meets, but that's not to say that we can't change our mind or do the heavy lifting to get to a data privacy agreement. I mean, I think the most legitimate concerns is that Zoom allows you to do breakout rooms and it allows kids to work in small groups. And certainly that's an important part of an effective classroom. And we're not sure that Google Meets right now has those tools. So I'm open to that. I think our team is open to that. And so we'll work certainly with Terry, Patty. If that is a huge desire from teachers, that's something we can look at. But those are some of the big things that questions that I've received. I'll tell you the big things that I'm thinking about is, number one, when kids do come back, how do we figure out what gaps now exist because of this of the coronavirus, and what do we do to support teachers and students to make sure that we're teaching kids the skills and standards that they missed out on. And then finally, what in the world is school going to look like when we do come back? Will it look like it looked when we left in mid-March? I doubt that. And so those are two things I think our team is going to be engaging educators on what can it look like and what would be the best ways to catch kids up that fell behind because they were out of school for an additional 40, 50 days. So I'll end my comments there. Again, thank you all so much. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to say thank you and then answer a few questions. So Terry, I'll turn it back over to you and answer any questions you all might have.
Okay, if you have a question, why don't you, can you raise your hand or put it in the chat? You have a question for Rob, and I know I've got three, I'll have to go to 3 screens here, but shy people here, or just unmute yourself. It looks like we're not going to have a rush. Anybody like to ask Rob a question?
I have a question.
Who is that?
Melissa.
Oh, hi, Melissa. Sorry,
Hi.
I was looking at other screens. Please.
It's an if, can't predict the future type of question, but if we go back to school in August and the second spike does come around in December or August or whenever, depending on your model, is there been a contingency plan with HR as far as if a teacher needs to be quarantined? Obviously we don't have 14 days, what that would look like, or is that something in the works?
Your head can start to hurt when you start thinking about all these scenarios. I think that if and when we come back, we're going to have to prepare for a few things. First and foremost, you're going to have to prepare that kids and teachers, adults and kids, will be coming in and out of buildings, right? Because this isn't, unless this goes away or until we have a vaccine, if there is some way that we can come back, we would have to have contingency plans to allow for learning to continue to go on for kids and for teaching to go on for teachers. So I think as we formulate our plans, those are the things that we're thinking about. The number one priority has to be safety, right? And I will tell you, not only because it's just the right thing to do, but if parents don't think that we're taking our safety precautions, they won't send us their kids, right? So we don't have a choice, and we certainly want to make sure that we're protecting our employees. And so I'd say, Melissa, that's a great question. I would say that as we think, and we'll work closely with Boulder County Public Health, who is learning more and more about this virus. The longer this goes on, strategies that are working not only in Colorado but across the country and across the world. So, I can guarantee you that safety is going to be at the forefront, and it's going to have to be, because if not, people won't trust our system. They won't send their kids. So,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So staff and students are wondering when and how they can get their things from buildings.
Yeah.
People were able to get some things before, but they did not realize we would be out this long.
Right. Yeah, we didn't realize it either. So once we make the call to cancel school, then we'll work with each individual school to create a safe way for kids, adults, teachers, everyone to come and get what they need for the summer. I'd expect to hear something about that within the next 2 weeks, not only to the community but for our educators. So.
Thanks, Rob. I see that was Barb Watson, and it looks like Carrie Marks Miller had a similar question about getting into classrooms and things. So then we have a chat from Erin saying she's wondering if staggered days would be an option. She has a class of 30 students, possibly running 2 sessions of fewer kids, you know, or something like that. I guess is that a possible option for the future?
I think depending upon what health officials tell us, it's a very viable option. You know, what I can't get my head around is how do parents who are going to have to go back to work, how do they manage having to have daycare every other day, every third day? I'm not sure how we would sort that out, but I do think that we could do reduced number of kids. And then as teachers, it just changes, I think, the role to much more intensive instruction over smaller periods of time with smaller groups of kids as opposed to large whole group instruction, which is going to be certainly different, but an option that people are talking about. Again, you know, we want to sit down with educators. We want to really think through, you know, the conversation that we had on our cabinet meeting today is I'd love to have a spectrum, right? Where on one hand, this is school as we used to know it, and on the other hand, that here's school that's all online. And then as we inch towards one way or the other, what are the options that we could roll out and consider? Because the challenge with this is that we just don't have much time to react. We're being asked to make pretty big, significant decisions with limited information in very short time windows. And so the better we're prepared we can be, I think the better we'll be able to react. So absolutely, that's an option.
Anyone else? I don't see any other new questions.
Terry, I chatted in.
Oh, sorry, Paul, it was early. Yes, please.
That's okay. Paul Lellman. Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody, even in these chat rooms, et cetera, et cetera. Rob, I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm just wondering if you've heard from many teachers that they're just really spending a lot of time doing this, and if there's any kind of plan to try to figure out compensation or whatever. I know my SPED teachers are having to spend all of their they're having to meet all of their kids' hours, and it's just, my wife is at Fairview and just is working her tail off, and you know, it's hard. So I don't know if there's any kind of thing in the works to make this either more streamlined or make it less work for some of the folks who are really having to put a heck of a lot of time into this.
Good seeing you, Paul. I think that's a fair question, right? I know it's happening. I don't think any teacher has contacted me and said, gosh, this has just been to the extent that I know it has been for them, but I know that it's happening. I can understand it. The only additional compensation that we've worked into our this year's budget is that we have worked in additional stipends for those that are doing some of the childcare and that those are doing the food service, right? Those that are in direct contact with individuals that are out there on the front lines. We felt like that was appropriate. We haven't thought about any other compensation. I think that as we think about next budget year, depending on what that looks like, you know, there might be some potential to do something, depending on where we're at. If we're talking about 4 or 5% cuts, I think it's going to be everything we have to make sure comp stays where it is, and that we continue to do steps and lanes for everyone, which is our plan and certainly our hopes. You know, the trick with the budget is how long will this go on, right? And the way that our CFO describes this, when you think about the last recession, it was more of a U, right? And we're hoping this is more of a V, right? Where there's an incident, there's a vaccine, or health officials catch up to this virus, we get to herd immunity faster than we thought, and then the economy springs back up again. That's our hope. And if that's the case, we can really fill in temporary holes with one-time dollars. And we have more one-time dollars that we can access today over recurring dollars. You all need to know compensation is my number one priority. I want to make sure that we continue to pay people, make them whole, value them. The teachers are the strength of this school district. Not even close. There's not even a close second. And so that is certainly our top priority. Things would have to get pretty dire for us to even consider not doing that. And I haven't seen a scenario where that would be the case, where we wouldn't be able to do that. But I don't know that we'll have the dollars to do additional compensation, but we'll just have to see. But certainly appreciate your comments, appreciate everything that everyone is doing, and your thoughts around how do we level out some of the work. I think those are the right things to be thinking about as we work with our team, because I would say some of the work right now is probably imbalanced for sure.
Rob, somebody was wondering what possible cuts might look like if we have to make those. I mean,
I would tell you that you know, you could expect cuts from administration. You could expect cuts from areas like transportation. I think that we would do everything we could to not touch classrooms. You know, that would be the last place we would go. Just depends on how deep it is, though.
And then somebody was wondering about a decision about summer school or summer camps, and you know, that use our facilities.
Yeah. Next couple of weeks, I would expect those things to be able to play out. Once the governor makes his decision next week, and we make our decision, then we'll begin to tackle, you know, what does summer look like. You know, it's looking more and more like that those aren't going to be able to happen, but I don't want to close the door on those just yet.
I know we had somebody talking about significant amount of additional paperwork required of SPED teachers. I know some of these things you're not able to answer directly, but I think we talked about that a little bit with Paul's question. I know we're getting kind of down, I think maybe another 5 minutes. So here's, somebody wondered about the equitability of classroom teachers versus folks who are not in front of students each day. We've heard that some schools have put this in place while others have not. It's very difficult to be the one on the screen for X hours each day. How is that working around BVSD?
Well, I would share that we've given, you know, everybody the same guidance. I would say that if teachers have concerns that, you know, the things that they're being asked to do are unreasonable or out of line with other schools, you know, first chat with your principal. If that doesn't go well, chat with your area superintendent, chat with Terry. Terry will talk with me. We have tactful ways of dealing with those things to make sure that we just don't forward your concern directly to somebody that you don't want it to go to. I would say that there certainly probably is variability, and just like there is when we're not teaching virtually or online. I think that there's variability amongst our schools. You know, the work that we have going on with our strategic plan would hopefully provide even levels of support and guidance and direction to all of our teachers. You know, and those are the documents that, as I've shared with many of you in my school visits, are things that we need to work on together to develop and build. I think that I see a comment in here, a more cohesive plan for online learning across the district. I think that starts with getting on the same page on what are the same standards we're going to teach, and then what are resources that we can align to that. That would certainly be creating less of a burden for teachers if we had a core set of materials and then you were just looking to supplement or enrich that. But you know, those are things that are going to take time. I know we're going to be working on some of that this summer. We worked on some of that this past year. You know, I certainly get that and understand that. But if there's big questions, get them to Terry. Terry will get them to me, and we'll get working on them.
Barb Watson had asked about getting credit compensation for people who've been working on PD, and I did talk with Katie Mills about that yesterday, and it didn't sound like that was something that was going to be possible because Katie pointed out that it was voluntary and that it would really be a burden on the folks that work with her to be able to enter that into what's the, I forget that, I'm blanking on the name of our credit system right
My
now.
Passport?
Yeah, My Passport. So if I could find her email, but I did point out that to her that I'll see if I'll pull it up here in my other, that a lot of people had been spending a lot of hours on that, and she acknowledged that, and was hopeful that we could do something in the future, but I don't know. Let's see if I can find that. Hold on a second. Rob, do you see any other questions right now that,
I do.
teacher evaluation.
Yep, so we've paused teacher evaluations. We had already done evaluations for probationary teachers. For everyone else, they're paused. I see Steph Smith has asked some questions around the paperwork. I think that's a good thing I can bring back to our team, the significant paperwork our special education teachers are having to complete. And then is there any work going on with the city of Boulder to increase internet broadband in the lower income areas? Absolutely. We're actually working hand in hand with the city of Boulder. We've got several different strategies we're using. We're down to a few hundred families, we believe, that don't have access to internet. And we're continuing to work on those on a case-by-case basis. And so that's been a priority for us. And then Libby asked, is there any way that APs could help with all the additional bed paperwork? I think that's something I could bring back to the team and say, how can we pitch in if the paperwork is becoming overwhelming? Then what can we do to help out? I think there's ways we can do that. So I'll take that away from this meeting. And Terry, I can get back to you on kind of what we decide and how we work through that.
All right, I think I've got 4:30 right now, and I know we'll probably have some time for AR concerns at the end. And I just want to say, I know we didn't answer everybody's questions. There's no magical formula for handling all of this, but you know, we're all together for all students. And I just wanted to say to you, Rob, that I really appreciate the email you sent yesterday, acknowledging the hard work that people are doing in this district, all the employees. And you're working hard, and the teachers are working hard. I hear how exhausted they are, and this is like worse than being a first-year teacher.
It is exhausting. You know, after the first, I was gassed. I mean, because there's no downtime. I mean, you're constantly engaged, and if you're teachers and you have kids, some are acting. You know, it's almost like your window of availability has grown. Same thing for me. Just can't thank you all enough. I'm so proud of our district. I'm so proud of the efforts of our teachers and our team. I'm just really proud to be part of this community. Terry, thank you for your leadership. Terry, Patty, and thank you all, everything that you're doing. Again, if anybody has any questions they didn't get answered, you can always email me. I do my best to get back to folks who email me with specific questions. And so, you know, feel free to always do that. So thank you all so much. Appreciate you.